unexplainable, paranormal, conspiracies, and much more. Starring your hosts and co-hosts, Jenny Nicasio, Sean Kelly, Trish Moe, and Jason Sledgehammer Ryan Petro. Brought to you by UPRN Network. Now for your host, Jenny Nicasio.
And welcome to Chasing Prophecy on FM 105.3 New Orleans, where we discuss anything and everything beyond the scope of normal. I'm Jenny Nicasio, along with my wonderful co-hosts, Sean Kelly, Jason Petro, and Trish Moe. And
Trish Moe is time traveling right now.
She's traveling. She is traveling somewhere beyond the scope of normal. I don't know where the heck she is, but
she's in the past. We're in the future because she's an hour behind us.
We'll just bring her on when she gets here, I guess. So, boy, guys, we had a little snow this weekend.
Oh my God! Damn,
love it.
I enjoyed it.
I didn't. I had to go to
well,
work
that's because you were out in the snow.
I had to work.
Looks like you still have snow stuck to your face, Pap.
Yeah, you like that, huh? You like that?
There we go. Torture Tuesday, right?
Torture Tuesday has commenced.
No,
Torture Tuesday.
No.
Oh yeah.
No, it was
Gary.
great. I enjoyed it.
Maryland.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the snow. Me and Ava got to go play in the snow.
Mm-hmm.
Make snow angels. You know, it was fun.
It was
I actually we hooked the kiddos' sled to the back of the riding mower and went zipping around the driveway.
That was
This video is proof.
You did not do that.
Yeah,
you
check it out. There's posted videos on my Facebook.
I want to be careful. Somebody might turn you in. Back of the.
Oh no, man! His kid is. Do you ever see his kid? Do you ever see the videos?
Yeah, I've seen his
my
pictures.
God!
He's adorable. He's very, very beautiful. They're precious blessings. We have our children. They're blessings.
Yes, and tiny terrors.
Mm-hmm. Most surely.
He's not 3 yet, though, is he?
What, 3 years old?
Yeah,
he's a year 2. And a half.
Oh hell! Wait till he gets 3.
Yeah, he's already. Well, he's 3 foot tall.
Well, you know, and then all of a sudden, when he turns 7 and 8, you don't exist. Everything. You don't exist.
Oh yeah. Well, no. Wait till they're like 20, and they think they know everything.
But they always come.
And then they always come back and say, "You know, Mom, you were right."
Yes, sir. That's a fact.
You were right.
Seems to be a never-ending sort of thing, you know. The older generations say it about the younger ones, and then it just keeps going down the line.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're lucky we're sitting here today because there was supposedly an asteroid whipped by Earth today at approximately 4:51 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're all here, so that's good. We know.
Too bad it didn't blow us up.
I know.
Yeah, I can think of a few places I would have liked to. We won't say that here. It's not politically correct. No, we won't do that. No. But tonight we have a pretty good evening scheduled. This is a really cool topic that I find close to my heart. Apparently, I must have time traveled. So, anyways.
Cool. Oh, boy.
Yeah. Lord. Well, tonight's show, we're going to dive deep into an interesting topic. Like I just said, time travel, and just like Jason's background today. And did you ever wish you could just go back in time and change a few things and try to see what happens?
See, I think that's where the old saying, if I knew then what I know now.
Right. No, I wouldn't, because here's how ridiculous.
Trish, thanks for coming in. You time traveled right to us.
Yeah, thanks for coming in, Trish.
But you know what? Here's the way I look at it. If I go back in time, I'd probably do the same dumb stuff I did back when I first did it.
Maybe not. Maybe not. You might have learned from your mistakes. I don't know. I think I learned a lot from my mistakes. So I would probably go back and try to change things. What about you, Trish?
Ooh, that's tough because if you change the past, it changes everything else that's happened since then. So
butterfly effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if we could change the outcome to more positive, that would be great. But what if you could?
What would you change, Jen?
Oh my goodness, I would change a lot of things, but I'm not gonna. Those are kind of personal things I won't change.
Oh, okay, sorry.
We don't want to talk about those things, but
yes, we do. Let's hear it.
But if you could travel back in time, believe it, there's a lot of people out there. And many people have claimed that they actually time traveled back in time, and some believe that it happened by accident, and some of them are even stuck. So I happened to come across a documentary on this past week. One of my Facebook friends posted it, and I said we should watch it because it was, it was kind of eerie. Some of the things that were discussed in the documentary was the confession of a time traveler, the man from 3060. So we will discuss this movie and the possibility of time travel with an expert author of real-time travel stories from a psychic engineer, the time travel in parallel dimensions with Martin. Martin, I'm going to have to bring you in because I had a hard time pronouncing your last name and I don't want to screw it up. So I'm going to head and bring you in because I don't want to screw up your name, Martin.
Hey, folks.
Ettington?
How are you doing? Ettington.
Hey.
Eddington. And
How are you folks
Martin.
tonight? Good to see you.
Good. Thanks for joining us for Torture Tuesday.
He is an engineer, and he's I would consider a expert, and he has so many books that I was just overwhelmed with how many books you've written. And I just want to say that I'm so happy to have you on, and thank you for coming on such short notice because I was so I feel honored that I got you and you agreed to come on. You have so much in your resume. You're an engineer, you're a psychic, you dwell in the metaphysics, and you are, I'm just like blown away with some of your books. And I asked Martin if he would come back as a special guest because he has so many topics that we could do a year. We could have our whole year calendar of just Martin's books. But Martin,
it's nice of you to say that.
I'm not being nice. I'm being really serious. And I was just telling my my mother, I said, I'm an author myself. And I said, how does he have time to write all these books? Because I was just amazed at all the books that you've written. And I'm very honored that you could come on the show. So, Martin, now you told me you actually watched the documentary about this supposedly Sebastian that claims that he's from 3036.
On Tubi.com. It's there for free.
Yeah, I watched it.
Yes. Now I know it's fake, but I went back on the internet and I found a lot of interesting articles about. I don't know if this is the same person that's on TikTok. He has his own TikTok channel, and he has been claiming that he was. I don't know if this is the same person, but now you guys all watched the documentary. It was very short. It wasn't like it was a very short. So Martin, what do you think?
Well, thanks for asking. Aside from the fact that the guy who made the movie may have not been on the level, let's just talk about Sebastian himself and the things that he says and does, which really contradict logic. So the first thing that I noticed, he's supposed to be from the year 3036, right?
Yep.
That's 1,000 years from now.
Yep.
If you look at the way he speaks, it's not correct. Because if you were even to go back to the 19th century, people would speak using different common phrases, different slang. And if you were to go back 1,000 years and talk to somebody who spoke the predecessor to English back in England, you couldn't understand them. So maybe things are a little more stable now, but still, I don't think anybody who would be from that era would speak English like a person who's from the now. Okay, it just doesn't make sense. The second thing I noticed is he didn't understand radiation. My degree in engineering science actually had a lot of nuclear engineering and radiation physics in it, so I know something about radiation. And yes, if you're exposed to a lot of radiation, you can lose your hair. But also, that level of radiation would kill you over time. And it's just not true that if you're exposed to radiation, you won't grow any hair. I mean, he said that all the people in that era were bald. Well, that's ridiculous too, because it's not something that stops hair growth. It's something that causes it to fall out. But if your hair falls out at that level of radiation, you're going to die anyway. So it doesn't make any sense. The next thing he said is food is free, no supply and demand economy. But, this is not a Star Trek universe. In Star Trek, maybe food is free, but not on Earth. And let's see, what else? He talked about people's life expectancy only being 40 years. Well, lifespan was 40 years in 1900. I doubt it would be that short then, although he says there's a lot of disasters. But just a lot of the things he said really struck me as ridiculous and conspiracy oriented. Oh, that was another thing he said, that the Rothschild court had taken over the world.
Yeah.
This sounds fairly anti-Semitic. And so overall, just the way the guy talked and the things he said were not consistent. I mean, one of the things I look for when I research things like time travel stories, I look to see if there's a consistency in what people are saying, if it makes sense. If there's a lot of stories that have a lot of consistency, then I tend to believe them about a particular topic, but otherwise I don't.
What do you think, Jason?
Well, I think it's pretty interesting stuff. It's curious to see. Well, I mean, obviously we won't be here, but we figure, we look back 1,000 years and how civilization was and all the natural disasters and everything that's happened and, what people have done and to where we are now. And it's like, it almost feels like there's just a huge gap there where there's just so much lost information, but now we have all this technology and everything now, in 1,000 years, what's that going to look like? Are they going to be digging up stuff that we buried, at landfills or lithium batteries or whatever and try and figure out what we were doing? It's just a lot to take in.
Well, when I watched the video tonight, I was really interested. I started to get into it, and then when the guy was interviewing Sebastian, I just shook my head. I was like, why am I even watching this? But I did it because of the show tonight. Because when they took a picture of his hand with that so-called thing in his hand,
his chip,
that could have been somebody else's hand, but here's what blew me away when they took the blood test, you know what I mean? And everything. I mean, whose blood did they take, or even if they did do a blood test? And what else was funny was this black car's been following me everywhere I go, and they showed the picture one time. I didn't see no damn black car, so I just shook my head and watched it all the way through.
Trish, what is your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot, like the radiation thing. I don't know that much about radiation. I don't know as far as its effects. I do know I have I know a lot of people that have had chemotherapy and radiation exposure, and low doses over an extended period of time cause what's called alopecia. Is it alopecia? That disease, and that does make you permanently lose your hair, your eyebrows, everything. So, and that's with low dose exposure to radiation.
But what the funny thing is, he had a beard and there was hair on the comb, so that was just a total screw up. What do you think, Martin?
No, he even asked him though. He said, "Your hair is growing back now, and you're bald when you came here." And he said, "It's because I'm not exposed to radiation now."
Well, see, that's a setup. That was a setup for him to go into the bathroom and grab the hair from the comb. That's what it was.
Well, Martin, what do you think about the 5G? Isn't that? I mean, that could be. Like they even had on the news today that they're worried about the airports and the pilots are worried that they're going to be launching the 5G, and how it could affect their instruments. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, instruments might be affected, but if you're talking about would that affect people? I mean, there's been a lot of claims over the years that cell phone electromagnetic radiation can hurt people, but I've never seen one real study that said that's the case.
There's there's actually, if I could find it real quick for you, there's a huge study in the Midwest over the effects of electromagnetic energy on humans, because it's affected so many people. Maybe because we don't have any mountains or landscape or anything.
Maybe.
Well, I'm not an expert on that, but I haven't seen anything myself that would say electromagnetic radiation is a problem for people, because basically we live in a sea of electromagnetic radiation with
but don't
radio waves and TV waves.
I've heard of a lot of people who live near like the power lines or have the giant antennas in their backyards right next to their house end up usually with some kind of cancer. Has anybody else heard of stuff like that?
Yeah, I've heard that it's linked to
I guess
cancer.
it's possible.
It's just more common.
2 heart attacks, and my most recent one, last year in September, right after, everything started opening up again after the shutdown. And my doctor specifically said he hadn't seen it much. He was a specialist. They had started studying the effects of electromagnetic sensitivity, and there's actually a disease that's called that does affect people who have, I have AFib, so I guess I'm more sensitive to it, but it does affect. That was right when 5G came about, and I can't be around power grids, big power grids in close vicinity for long periods of time. I can't, because it'll give you a heart attack. So.
Oh my.
Well, I'm not an expert on that topic, so I would not counter your opinion.
I'm not an expert either. I just had a heart attack.
These are all just.
I just had a heart attack. Well, Martin, I was doing a lot of research on the internet about different people that just claim that they have time traveled, and there's some articles like one of them was in a grocery store and he needed food, and another person had other items on them that were not relative to this time period. But when I was reading your book, now I found it to be very interesting, and I was just actually made me do more research on different things that you mentioned in it. Going back to, let me put my notes. You discuss real life time travelers. And now, starting with the very first one, and these, I can't pronounce their names, the 2 women, but the visiting of Versailles in Paris. Now, that actually made me go look on YouTube, because I remember watching Versailles, the series on Netflix, and I was fascinated with it. And that's when I went and did some research on YouTube about actually putting myself in that particular era, about the 2 women. Now, to explain to our listeners and viewers about what we're going to do is we're going to go down the list, okay, starting with them. And I want you to tell people and tell them the stories about these time travelers. Now, these are real time travelers. You're saying that. Now, how do you know they're real, and where did you get your information on these ones? Because I couldn't really find too much information.
Well, I do all my research on the internet, except for a few books I buy for additional reference. And what I've found mostly from researching for this book is that there seem to be kind of time portals or time warps in different places around the world that people have passed through. And this seemed to be the story with these 2 ladies who in 1901 went to see the Versailles Palace outside Paris, and they seemed to be in a field of, I don't know, negative or depression. And when they came out, they were in an area. Whoops, I see the screen is changing. They were an area around the palace that seemed to go back to the 18th century. In other words, over 100 years before the time that they actually came there. And they walked around, they met different people, they saw different things, and it just seemed odd to them. It seemed very odd. And then later they came back to the present when they went up to the main building. But when they went back to England, they talked to a couple of people who knew the history of Versailles, and they talked about their experience, and the persons who they talked to said that they had met some historical personages who were from that era. So this seems to be a story, again, of a portal that they went through somehow and then came back. And the other stories I collected are similar in that vein.
I was just fascinated with that because, who did the one woman say that she saw Marie Antoinette?
It might have been, yeah. I don't have the story in front of me, and I don't remember all that I've written because I've written a lot, but it might have been.
And how did, it was just one stretch of parcel that they seemed to, there was a time like a warp, you said like a portal.
Yeah, that seems to be the nature of most of these stories. Shall I tell you my favorite one?
Yes, I was going to ask you which one was your favorite.
Sir Victor Goddard, who was a pilot And about 1932, he was flying his biplane in Scotland. He was a member of the RAF. And he went through a storm. And when he came out of the storm, he went over an airfield that he'd previously seen, and the airfield was abandoned. And there were planes, but instead of being biplanes, a lot of them were monoplanes, like were used in World War II. And the people had different uniforms there. So he looked at this, flew over the field, and he flew back, and he came through a storm again. And it just seemed very odd to him because that field was abandoned in 1932. 1939, he saw this field again, and everything had changed. The field was now active. People wore these, I think it was yellow uniforms, and there were monoplanes instead of biplanes. A lot of things that looked just like what he saw in 1932. Mm-hmm. And so the storm seemed to be some type of portal that transported him to the future, 7 years in the future, and then transported him back. So I thought it was a really interesting story. Mm-hmm. And again, it's along the same lines that there's portals that people can go through that transport them different places. Now, of course, we only get the stories from the people who came back.
Most definitely. Jason, what are your thoughts?
We're talking about these portals. Would you say they're kind of relative to like a wormhole? A lot of people are familiar with like wormholes.
Well, a wormhole is a theoretical construction that would have to do with black holes and connecting them, and the gravities around those would be tremendous. I don't know. I don't know if it's related to a wormhole or not, but the things I've read it seem to indicate that time and dimensions, alternative dimensions, have portals too. I mean, I wouldn't say this even 2 years ago, but when I researched on the time travel stories and later on the stories of people who claim to be transferring back and forth between dimensions, I started to think that in addition to my premonitional experiences, our reality is not as solid as we think. It is really full of holes.
Right.
And strange things happen.
Hey, Martin, I was
Yes,
I was reading your last chapter on the book that you sent us, and by the way, thank you.
Sure.
And so premonitions, I couldn't understand. Premonitions are like time traveling? Was that what you were trying to say?
I wouldn't call it time traveling, but it's the ability of your spirit to sense things before they happen. Okay. I look at it like the future is a probability, and we can see the probabilities of the future. Can I tell two of my personal stories that relate to this?
Yes.
Okay. So the first premonitional or prophecy experience I had was in about 1976. I was actually going to school at RPI in Troy, New York. And in the summer, I was working a job at General Electric's gas turbine engineering in Schenectady. And they let me meditate at my desk. That weird college kid, they just left me alone. So I was meditating at my desk, thinking about a vacation trip I wanted to take before school opened out to Cape Cod. And so I'm kind of musing on this. And all of a sudden, I see myself trying to get up on a surfboard, and I fall off, and I come up, and the board hits me, bam, into my chin, and I get knocked out of my meditation. It's so wild. And then 2 weeks later, I'd forgotten about this, and I was walking down the Cape, and I saw these guys with surfboards, and I said, "Oh, can I tell me where I can rent one?" They said, "Oh, we've got extra boards. You can learn with us." So I got out there all day, and I'm trying to get up, and it's exhausting. And about 2 p.m, I tried to get up again. I got thrown off, same exact scene. The board comes towards me, bam, I get hit in the chin. I have all sorts of blood. I thought I was going to go under, and I managed to stagger out, and they took me to the hospital where I had 10 stitches or 2 sutures and 10 stitches. So that was my first experience seeing a future with a probability of it occurring. But the question is, could I have changed it? And then go a number of years later, probably 30 years later. And after I'd had numerous experiences, so I knew that they were real, I had this really strange experience. And you've probably seen those movies where people have a premonition about an airplane that takes off and crashes, right? I think there's a series of movies about that. Have you seen that movie?
I know which one you're talking about. I just can't remember the title.
So here's the story. I'm living in Los Angeles, California. It's 1998. And I was married at the time. And we were going to go visit my ex-wife's mom, who lived in Barcelona, Spain. And that would have been with my stepdaughter and my infant son. But then I was waiting for a contract job. I was hoping for a contract job at Boeing. And so I said, you go ahead and I'll join you later. And a few days later, the contract people told me, this isn't going to happen now for a few weeks. You might as well go to Spain. So I went to call the booking agent, and I got this really dark feeling, And so I stopped. And later in the day, I tried to call again. I got the same really dark feeling. I should also mention at this time, I had this feeling for a couple of years that I wasn't going to live much longer. So the next morning, I tried to call one more time. I picked up the phone, started to dial, and I got black darkness. And I thought, wow, I'm really not supposed to go on this. So I lay down to meditate and looked forward to the date I was going to go, which was September 2nd, 1998. And I had this vision that a plane that I might be on would crash. And I thought, oh my God, should I go on this or not? And I really wanted to go because I wanted to be with my family, right? And it was a fun vacation. But I also had my previous experience with other premonitions that came true. And I thought to myself, this is really stupid. I should go. But then I thought about it. What if it was a real premonition that I'm getting a warning here? So I decided not to go. And as immediately as that happened, I felt like the weight of my forthcoming doom left me. And so I didn't go. I stayed home. It was really boring. Comes another 2 weeks later, September 2nd, 1998, and a Swiss Air flight crashes into the ocean off Newfoundland, and a couple hundred people are killed. And I don't know if I would have been booked on this flight or not, but it was the same day, and it was a flight I could have ended up taking. So I will never know for sure, but I'm personally sure that I managed to avoid this fate. So what it said to me is there is a momentum towards certain events occurring. And if you can fight it, you can fight it, and you can change that momentum. You can change that direction somewhat because the future is a probability. But certain events are more fated to occur than others. I know I'm getting way off the topic from tonight, but it was fascinating to me because it taught me something about the nature of time. I believe time is perceived by our core spirit. We all have a core spirit that's connected to the universe. It lives in a timeless, spaceless realm. And so I learned something valuable. I've had other experiences where I learned other things, but this was one of the most significant.
Trish, your thoughts on that?
Have you seen the show Manifest?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I have.
That's what I was thinking about when they, well, first of all, when they go through the electric storm, but what is and in relation to your story, some of them have the same thing called callings, obviously, when they either help themselves or other people. But they were all in a situation that was kind of through a portal or a time travel situation where they were given another chance almost at life, to dodge that. So do you think that that's what you experience in a sense as well?
Well, I wouldn't call it the same as that because obviously that's a sci-fi show.
Well, right.
But
I mean, dodging death, I guess.
But I do think we can sense danger in our future. In fact, in one of my books, which is about longevity, I teach exercises to people that they can go into a meditative state and look forward to a certain activity in time and feel if anything bad, good or bad, is going to happen. And that the idea is that our spirit intuitively allows us to see things that are out there. Because again, our spirit is connected to our physical body, but it lives in a timeless, spaceless realm. So it sees future possibilities. So yes, we can see events that are going to happen. And I think major events that happen kind of send waves, like quantum waveforms, into time backwards where they can be perceived.
Most definitely. You had so many different stories, and there was the one that stood out about the man that died. He was hit by which one was that? I have so many here. He was the coroners looked in his pockets. Do you know which one I'm talking about? He died. He had no identity. They found items in his pockets.
Was that the man from Torrid?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't remember all the details of that. Please excuse me, but I don't remember all the details
No problem.
of the stories I've written.
No, there was just some items that they found in his pockets that weren't, there's no way that they weren't from this time, and they were in good condition. They weren't like old.
Yeah, I think that was the guy who claimed he was from the past, and later they tracked down that he might have been that person. So maybe there's an example of a man who went through a portal to the future, which was the current time when that story was written, but couldn't return to the past. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of stories like that. In fact, there are some documented teleportation stories where people spontaneously teleport to different places in the world. And I wonder if that might be just a teleportation story with time travel involved.
Okay, what about the town in Liverpool?
Yes.
That one really, really was interesting. And I even went online looking for examples of it to see if other people, it's in the United Kingdom. What is
Bold
that
Street in Liverpool.
Yes.
This is a really interesting place because there's been numerous reports of people who were in that town walking down the street, and they seemed to go back in time to stores that didn't exist today, but they were existing in the 1950s or the 1960s. And there's numerous reports of this. So this is the only story I've seen that kind of indicates portals exist. There might be more than one portal in the area, or a portal that multiple people have gone through and returned. It's really interesting because
there's so many of them. There's so many stories on the internet of people.
I've heard of animals too, like an animal from one part of the world, like if a zebra showed up, in the middle of Kansas or something. But it's because the theory is that they went through some portal,
But there's a street, and people go back in time. Like there was one couple. There was a woman who was going to buy baby clothes.
That was interesting.
That was crazy, and the person said, well, she had a credit card. We don't take cards. And like she noticed that people were dressed differently. Well, how come it keeps changing? I mean, I don't know. It's like you'll be walking down the street, and all of a sudden it's no longer a bookstore. It's a diner or something like that. It's amazing. And it's I wonder how many other, areas in the world that have these portals that we don't know about.
I know, that's a good question. And the stories I found were in different parts of the world. And this is again the reason why I think our space-time continuum is not as stable as we like to think. There are imperfections in it, and people can fall through those imperfections in different places.
What I like that's the story you told about your wife on 9/11, about the 9/11, the Twin Towers. Now tell that story, because I thought that was really interesting.
Well, I don't know. I think I included my story regarding that too, so I'll tell both.
Yeah, tell both, because I thought they were really interesting.
In 1976, my parents lived in New Jersey, so I would go home there in the summer from college. And I used to go into the city a lot. You take the PATH tubes from Hoboken. And at this time, they were building the World Trade Center. And I wanted to see how far I could go up in the towers because it was still under construction. But I took an elevator. I managed to get up about halfway, like the 50th floor. And it was an empty floor. There was nobody in there, just columns. And I walked over to the window and I looked at the view. The view was pretty good. And then I put my hand on the column, and I was already into meditation and different things at that time. And I'd had some paranormal experiences. So I closed my eyes and I thought, how long will this building exist? And I thought logically, 100 years, 200 years, maybe more. But the answer that came back to me was only like 25 years. And I thought, gee, that's odd. So of course, 25 years will be 2001.
Yeah.
The other story is that in the year 2000, I was visiting my sister in New York, and we both had a couple of infant children with my wife, now ex-wife, and we were walking around near the World Trade Center. And all of a sudden, she had a vision, and she said, a lot of people are going to die here. I said, what are you talking about? She said, there's just a lot of death here. And she felt very uncomfortable. She had herself. So anyway, that was all that happened. But this also shows me as an engineer, as a technical person, that major events like 9/11 can send like waves of a rock being dropped in a pond back through time, which people perceive. And I've had other experiences that indicate the same thing. So major events, theoretically, you could change the probability of them happening, but to do that, you'd have to change the minds of thousands, if not millions of people. And that's why practically it doesn't make any sense to try and do that.
There's so many different items, like time traveling is a consciousness traveling, like through meditation, like on Somewhere in Time, where Christopher Reeves, he would lay down and meditate with an item, hold the item in his hand, and he time traveled. And then there's the story, like, with Michael J. Fox, where he would go into a DeLorean, I guess, in time travel.
Yes, a good movie.
Is it possible? I mean, I've been watching the Time Traveler show on, I think it's on Hulu, I'm not sure. Where these people, the government has made a time machine and they go back into time, like to the Hindenburg. Is there any possible way, like the government is making time machines, like in the Philadelphia Project, and that was mentioned in 3036? I mean, is there?
Well, I'm not going to say it's impossible, because I think there's a lot of government secrets and we don't really know the truth. But my own personal belief is that time travel would happen more with your own consciousness, your own spirit's interference with reality or connection to reality. I think it's more of a mental or spiritual phenomena rather than something you can control by a machine. But I'm not an expert. I don't know of anybody who is an expert in a time travel device.
I mean, have they ever done any kind of research where people actually go into a meditative state and they go back to when Abraham Lincoln was killed? I mean, can you?
There are people who've done things like that. They claim that mentally they can go in time and space wherever they want to.
But they can't change time. I mean, can they just go and observe?
I don't think so. I mean, there's the old paradox. What would happen if you went back in time and shot your father before you were born? I mean, there's a lot of unanswered paradoxes about time travel too. And I've read a lot of time travel books. So I really find the subject fascinating.
Yeah, it is very fascinating.
Didn't Stephen Hawking try and experiment with like invites to a party for time travel or something? It was just a couple of years ago. Or
invites?
I don't know.
Yeah, he had like invites and he had a party set for a set date, and then he didn't want to hand the invites out till after the party to see if time travel was real, because then the people would have showed up, because he went back and then gave them the invites.
Did anybody show up?
No. No, he was disappointed. Very disappointed.
Wow.
Look it up, check it out sometime.
I used to think as a kid, standing on the lawn of my parents' house, that if I buried a box in the lawn and it was intended to be dug up in a couple hundred years, that I wanted somebody to come back and visit me, that they might do that, but it never did happen. So I don't know.
So the folks that can do the time traveling, are they able to like go at will, like just back and forth, or are they like certain times, would you say?
From what I've seen, it seems to be spontaneous unless you're near a portal, in which case that it would be the portal that does it. But one of my other studies, because I've written a lot of books on the paranormal, one of my other books was on teleportation. And there do seem to be people who have had teleportation experiences and can teleport themselves if they're real adepts, real spiritual adepts. So the question is, could those same people teleport themselves through time as well as to a different physical location? So maybe that's a possibility.
Do you think that the teleportation? Do you think they might just be astral projecting?
There you go.
Astral projection is different. I mean, astral projection is your spirit leaving your body and going different places.
Yeah.
But from the exercises I've seen about doing teleportation, it's astral projection plus another factor, which is a visualization of yourself going from where you are to another location. So I have not personally teleported. One book I read said you can't learn to teleport until you're about 300 years old. I don't know.
Good luck. Come back in time and let us know how that worked out.
Martin.
Yeah.
In the Pacific Northwest, there's a lot of woods, and and from what I've read, that there's a ton of portals out in that area. Okay, in the woods itself. Have you ever investigated or researched portals that are out in that area, or even anywhere out in the woods where there's portals?
That's a Bigfoot country, isn't it? Out in the Northwest.
Yep, it is.
The reason I say that is I wrote a book on Bigfoot too. I gathered up a lot of the available research, and some people think Bigfoots come from, I won't say a different time, but possibly a different dimension.
Yeah.
So there might be different dimensional portals. A book I wrote about Ireland. I know I'm skipping all over the place here. I hope you don't mind. But the ancient people of Ireland are called the Tuatha De Danann. And the Tuatha De Danann claim they came from another dimension called the other world. And there's stories about the other world. So it makes you wonder if they really did come from there. There's stories of people who went to the other world and they were there for like a year and came back, and it was like 100 years or 200 years later, which might indicate a different dimension because the time might be running at a different rate in that dimension. Anyway, I know I'm getting way off your question, Sean. I'm sorry about that. But the reason I mentioned it is I think there might be portals which could be either time or dimensionally oriented in the area you're talking about. And it might explain why some cryptozoological animals, where they might reside, maybe they come from another dimension or even another time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you think that, speaking of the past and interdimensional beings coming from those places or different places in time, do you think that it would affect a person's age if they were to time travel, or would they not age?
That's a really good question. I don't know the answer, but it's a really good question. I do think it's possible for people's astral bodies or spirits to impress themselves on another being. So what about the idea that a person travels astrally through time and takes over the body of another being in a different time, which might be a different age? All sorts of interesting possibilities.
And I would think the energy that it would take to do that would be physically, almost physically, would physically increase your aging. If you did it too often, I guess.
I don't know. It's a good question. We're just in the realm of speculation here, but these are all good questions.
There's a question from Alexia. I have an astral projected unknowingly and knowingly, most of the time into the spirit world. Is that considered time traveling, or is spiritual world considered a different dimension or a different reality?
That's a good question. And although I've read a lot about astral projection, I've only had a brief experience of that, and I'm not an expert about it. But I would say that the astral realm is a different realm. You could call it a dimension that our consciousness goes into either through astral projection or when we die. And that many books, many writers say there's many levels to that astral world, many vibrational levels. Also, here's an interesting possibility. We live in an incredibly huge universe. There's actually 2 trillion galaxies out there, not stars, but 2 trillion galaxies. And if each galaxy has several hundred billion stars in it, that raises the number of possible stars in the universe to something like, I calculated at one time, like 10 to the 24th. So what if astral travel might take you to another physical location, another planet, somewhere else in the universe? That's an interesting idea too. So I've had some vivid dreams that said to me that I was either in a different realm or a different physical location where I saw things that didn't make any sense. Like I remember one vivid dream I had took me to a world where there were all sorts of crystals and buildings that were many colored crystals. And was that another world here in our universe, or is that a spiritual dimension? I don't know. There's a lot of unknown things out there. Good question, though.
Thanks, Alexia.
Yeah,
But for me, like, I don't know where I read was Ireland, England, Wales, over the United Kingdom. There's a lot of stuff that happens, and I've heard that it's one big portal. Have you heard of something like
it's
that?
because you were watching Outlander.
I never watched that before. No, but because you said it, what I read tonight was that most of the stories that you research come from England or the United Kingdom. And
yeah, but remember that we are living in an English-speaking world, and there's many countries out there where people don't speak English, or we may not have communication enough with them to get their stories. There are a lot of weird things, I'm convinced, that happen all over the world, and we don't know a tiny percentage of those. So yes, some strange things happen in England, but I think they probably happen other places too. I think we just know more about what happens in England because they're kind of brothers to us.
Have you seen those pictures on the internet about the guy that's walking in I think it's the 1950s, and he has on a t-shirt with a novelty shirt, and he has dark sunglasses on, and he totally looks out of place. Did you ever see that picture?
Yes, I think I know the one you mean, where there's a guy in a crowd with dark glasses and seem to be dressed the same as the others.
Yeah, he was on. I think he was on a cell phone, or is that the woman Is that the woman that they saw walking?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen those pictures, and it's unlikely that they were people out of time, but who are we to say for sure? So,
well, they said
the photos were tampered with?
No, they said they weren't tampered with.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, I'm not. You call me an expert, but I'm really only an expert in that I've researched this phenomena. I don't really know many of the answers, but I've learned enough to know that our world is a lot more malleable than we might think, both in consciousness, in terms of premonitions, in terms of dimensions, in terms of time portals. The world is not the stable place that we think.
I've noticed an interesting kind of correlation of where time capsules have been placed in the US. I don't know about other places, but it's always interesting to me. Like there's one in the Topeka Capitol building, that's underground. There's one on the top of multiple hills in the area. Do you think there's a reason for their placement when it corresponds with the future?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. It might be. I need to get up for a minute, Jenny. Give me just a couple minutes.
Sure. Yeah. Well, go ahead. We're going to break for, go ahead and break. Our second hour is sponsored and brought to you by Carnation Instant Chocolate Milk. anything Carnation. Evaporated milk. We want to thank Carnation for sponsoring the second hour of our show. You should make sure you go out and get some. I like the Smart Starts myself, and yeah, I was doing a lot of research on this, and I found out like this guy right here.
Yeah, so that could easily be tampered.
To me that's photoshopped.
It looks like it. Yeah. Like if you look at it closely, you can really see that's definitely some kind of Photoshop.
There's a couple. Oh, what about this girl? They think that she, let me find her. That one girl, the Greta from the 19th century. You know who I'm talking about? The girl that's trying to save the environment.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that one a long time ago. I know what
Yeah,
you're talking about.
let me see if I can get that one.
Nowadays, I feel like if somebody came to our present time from the future, it would be hard to distinguish them from, because I mean, people dress and look all different ways, you know.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Greta Thunberg.
I want to believe that they are experimenting with time travel. I want to believe that because it seems like it's so. Boots said his pregnant wife drinks carnation smoke stars.
Well, that was my thought, Jason, was either doppelgangers or reincarnation, obviously, the same person, you know, in the future.
Yeah.
I don't know.
See, I think it's more of a doppelganger kind of thing because I've had, you know, lookalikes myself out there, and people were like, "Whoa, I saw you." No, it wasn't.
Yeah, no, you're right.
One time, this is there was this guy that was caught on surveillance camera robbing a convenience store. He was wearing the same bandana I wear, had long hair when I had long hair, same beard. Like he looked just like me. At the point, a couple of my friends were like, "Hey, did you do something you shouldn't have been doing?" I was like, "No." They're like, I was like, "Why? What's going on?" They're like, turn on the news. I was like, "Holy smokes, they're going to come and get me." And it wasn't even me. You know, it freaked me out.
Well, you know, going back to the documentary 3036. Now, I did some research. Once I watched it, I went on, and there was a guy found in California, Cypress, I think, Park, that had his hand. They found a dead body with no identification. They could not locate who he was, and his hand was removed. So, I don't know, guys.
I mean, maybe when that guy was doing that video there, that he said, "Oh, look at this. There was a guy who got burned," and he just added it onto his story. That's the way I look at it. I thought it was a bunch of rubbish, Jenny.
Well, I'm sure it is a bunch of rubbish, but if you think, what if it wasn't? You know, what if it wasn't, and he did get stuck? And I wonder if it's based on somebody that what really was a time traveler and got stuck here. How would he think about it? How would he survive? Like, would he have to get a job? I mean, he can't get back. You know, think about little stuff like that. And here's some more questions for you.
And also him staying here, how would that affect the future?
Yeah.
Like, is that allowed? Is there some sort of, you know, universal time travel law that you can't?
Holy crap. Look at that question.
No,
it's two parts.
Who wins the 2024 presidential election? Does a false flag alien attack? Well, we know this is going to happen. They're going to probably do that. Well, there's a lot of speculation that there will be a fake. And we go back to the Blue Ultra. What's it called?
I know.
Project Bluebeam.
Yeah.
Where they simulate an alien attack just to cover up something or just to.
I'm really waiting for that to happen. I want to see that. I want to see how.
Yeah, I'd like to see some aliens.
I like to see some aliens, but I want real aliens. No, I had an experience when me and Sean were just starting our show. My son had the same feeling of time shift. Now, Sean, do you remember when I got? Remember when we had the missing time?
Yeah,
when we were doing a show, and I missed a whole hour.
Yes, I remember.
And my
that.
son felt the same thing. And it caused a big argument with our producer from our other radio show.
Yep.
But I totally missed an hour, and we can't explain what happened.
Yeah, that was creepy.
It was very.
Were you in the same location, or what else happened?
Yeah, we were doing a radio show, and I got upset because we were supposed to go on the air, and our producer was supposed to. Was it a recorded show that was supposed to play at a certain time? And I'm like, where's the show at? It's 7:00. It should be on. And I'm like freaking out. I'm texting Sean. But my son felt the same thing. We were all confused with the time. For 1 hour. Hi, baby. My German Shepherd. She's just coming to say hello. We totally lost an hour. I don't know where it went. It's like totally.
That was crazy.
Totally weird.
Yeah, it's another indication that it's related to your consciousness and your consciousness perception of time. I'll tell you another quick story if you don't mind. That is related to that. So I've had a lot of strange things happen in my life, but this one was new and unusual just in the last year or two. It's a very simple thing, but I actually wrote a book about it.
Hi, Ava.
Sorry, go ahead.
And anyway, I woke up early. My son was living with me at the time. And I woke up early, and on the table, I saw a smartphone. So I picked it up, and I didn't know whose smartphone it was. And later, my son got up, and I said, Neil, did you have a visitor, or is this another phone you got? And he said, no, I don't know what you're talking about, because it wasn't, he said it wasn't his phone. Then the cleaning lady came over several hours later, and I saw the phone was no longer on the table. And I asked her, do you know what happened to the phone on the table? And she said, oh, it's my phone. I said, oh, really? Can I see it? And she showed it to me. My God, it was the same phone that I'd seen hours ago and I'd picked up and handled. How the heck did that phone appear hours before she even came to our house? I don't get it. That's why I think, it was by location. Somehow there was some rupture in the time stream and her phone appeared where I could see it hours before she was even there. It was very strange. And I like to think I'm a pretty observant person, and I was trying to explain it. And that's one of the weirdest things that happened. Because
that is weird. Like, how many times could that happen in your lifetime that you could even, account for? I mean, the chances of that happening again.
Yeah, it's
one in zip.
I like to try and explain most of the experiences I've had, which is, I guess, one reason why I research and write the books and where I spend so much time on learning meditation and reading about a lot of spiritual things and having spiritual experiences, in addition to being an engineer. But some things are still somewhat hard to understand. But I look at everything that's happened to me as a learning experience.
What about missing time? I mean, do you ever have missing time?
No, I've never had missing time, but I've talked to other people who have. And were there any aliens around or UFOs around?
I don't know. I've just recently, after we had a meteor erupt in the atmosphere over here, and was it a meteor, right, guys?
January 1st.
January 1st.
Yep.
I can recall missing time. Like, okay, I looked at the clock and it's already like, wait a minute, I just looked at the clock and it was 12. Now it's 3 p.m. Like, what happened to my time?
Yeah, I think something's happening to your consciousness. I don't know if you meditate, but you might want to meditate and go back to that event in your mind and see if you have any feelings about it or memories that are missing or something about it.
What about you, Sean? Do you ever have any missing time?
No, not at all.
Jason?
But there's times, when I'm just driving and then you get to where you're going and you have no idea how you got there. You don't remember driving, you don't remember seeing anything, and you're just like, wow, how did I get here? Or thought, whatever. That's about it for me.
Trish, I know you have.
Yes, most of those times led back to abductions and stuff through regression, hypnosis, regression therapy, and such, though. So, I mean, listen, I know I was missing time, but I was going to say I was trying to find it because I know it was 2 or 3 years ago, and it was all over the world, and everyone had accounts of missing time in every country. So,
really, when was this?
It had to have been 2018 or 19. I know it was before COVID and the shutdown and everything. So I want to say 2018 though, but it was a worldwide phenomenon, so people everywhere. on a specific day had accounts of missing time. But I was also going to say, have you heard, Martin, of the Great Unconformity?
No, I haven't. Please tell me.
It's something I recently came across when studying rock formations and stuff with my kids. It's there's a gap of missing time between 100 million and 1 billion years long in history, which is crazy. Like, it's just, you know, how they date fossils and rocks and things like that. And one specifically is in the Grand Canyon.
Well, I have researched and written a couple of books about out-of-place artifacts that are hundreds of millions of years old, but yet could not have been made by man because humanity only goes back a few 100,000 years. So there's a lot of strange things back then. I have my own theories about that, but that gets into a whole different subject. But there's actually enough to fill 2 books of out-of-place objects that should not exist. The more of those that are found, the more you begin to think there were many civilizations before ours back in time.
That's wow.
That's what's crazy about the Grand Canyon theory, because it's like if that giant, you know, it's like on your computer, if you accidentally move one file to another folder and it changes everything, what if that happened, you know, in geographical locations in the world in different places in time, and then you would end up with all of that history in another place.
Well, we talked about it, was it last week? The author with Missing 411 was in this one area, and they didn't test with a couple guys, and you know, from here maybe 50 yards, there's 6 minutes lost, you know, and that's crazy. And the whole story behind it was that the tribe that actually lived there, they just fell into a portal or whatever, they disappeared. But there is a place that you lose 6 minutes from point A to point B.
Where's this at?
I really wish I knew where it was. It was about a hiker. He took a hike and he followed this path and he disappeared and never was seen. And what happened was this Missing 411 author, he brought a scientist there and they did an experiment with time and they lost 6 minutes. And exactly where the guy was last seen is where they lost 6 minutes.
That's really interesting. Maybe there was some type of time portal there or dimensional portal.
And at that time, in the same place, like I said before, that there was like, I think, Indians and Native Americans, whatever, but there was a tribe there and they all disappeared. No one could find them. It's like they fell off the face of the earth.
There are stories of people disappearing in plain view of others, like a person walking across a field who just disappears, poof, and other people are looking right at him, and he never comes back. So, again, these are things people like to discount. It's not possible, but it happens.
Now, could it be the government doing some of this stupid stuff?
Stupid.
I don't think our government's smart enough to do that type of thing.
I don't know.
It would be. They probably already did it.
I think our government does have secret technology, probably has secret anti-gravity technology and a lot of secret ships. But things like this, I think our people don't even know about. The dog's trying to tell you something. He knows.
Yeah.
So if anybody here could time travel, would you consider going back to the dinosaur age to see what it was all about for real?
I'm sorry, go back.
I think
Go back where?
Like the dinosaur
I'll be right
age.
back, guys.
Okay.
Oh, see you, Jenny.
Oh, yeah, that's really interesting. I read some good science fiction stories about that. I don't know that I'd want to go back to the dinosaur age because I might get eaten.
Yeah, that's, you know, live life on the edge.
But I might want to go back to the past. I mean, one of the sci-fi books I remember was about a guy who goes back, a modern man who goes back to Rome, and how he introduces a lot of technology in Rome to make money, and he gains a lot of power in Rome. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to think of who wrote that. Anyway, it's an interesting premise that what could you do if you took the knowledge of a 20th century or 21st century person and went back in time. A Connecticut Yankee by Mark Twain was that premise. I don't know how many of you ever read that. As a guy in the 19th century who goes back to King Arthur's court and all the technology he invents then, and they think he's a wizard. It's a really interesting premise.
Well, there was a movie out a long time ago. It was about an aircraft carrier, and they when they went into this portal.
The Final Countdown.
Was that the name of the movie? I thought that was pretty cool. Can you imagine RF-14?
Kirk Douglas.
Was it Kirk Douglas?
Mm-hmm.
But the way I liked it was how the one officer never made it back on the ship. And so when the ship pulled in, that officer came in the car, and the guy was old, you know.
Yes.
So it was like, ooh, I got chills. I got goosebumps.
The idea that if a modern nuclear carrier went back to World War II, how it could wipe out the entire Japanese fleet that's attacking Hawaii. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. That would be wild. But so speaking about going back, I was thinking about it. What I'd like to do is go back to like the United Kingdom, England, and that when Christianity started to come into there, and you know, just like hang around with all the other pagans there, you know, all the other. And just see how their life was and how Christianity, because it's mind-boggling how Christianity tried to come in and change, you know, tried to change and some, you know what I mean? That's where I would like to go, is back in that time. That's where I'd like to go.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting theories and history researchers who like to look at the period when the Romans pulled out of Britain in like the 5th or 6th century AD, and then maybe that's when King Arthur's existence was. Maybe he was a former Roman leader. And also Christianity could have come into England at that time also. Interesting to speculate.
How about you, Trish? Do you have any ideas? Did you do any research on that?
Well, I know as far as like paganism and witchcraft and everything goes, there's tons of history on witches manipulating time and space and history and things like that. So that's an entire, I guess, specialized area.
And that gets again into the whole issue of your spiritual abilities to manipulate time.
So what kind of, I'm sorry, go ahead, Trish.
Oh, I was going to say it's kind of the same. It's different than time travel, but as far as energetic places in time. So say I'm at a historical building and I touch the building or the ground or something, you know, as far as being a medium, I often see that period, that era where that war was or whatever happened. But that's more on the spiritual realm as far as something with a lot of energetic resonance happened in that area. It's not like I'm traveling back there to that time.
Well, when you go to Gettysburg, I go every year, and there are times I'm out there on the battlefield and I can hear the guns being shot. You know, I can smell the gunpowder, you know what I mean? So it's like, am I time traveling or what?
Or are they time traveling?
Or are they time traveling?
Probably a lot of spirits of the dead out on the battlefield.
Oh, I guarantee it. But it's just amazing. It's like, okay, am I in this portal where the Civil
War? Kind of like the movie The Others, you know? Anybody ever see
that movie? No, I never did.
It was like I forget the actress, but it was her and her two kids living in this house, and then like they get invaded by these spirits, they think, and trying to communicate with them, but it actually turns out that they are the spirits. You know,
I've often thought that.
Yeah. Like, what if we're actually, you know, intervening the spirit's way of life? Something to think about.
That was what was the one movie with
years ago, and we're all just
with Bruce Willis. What was he in?
Die Hard.
No.
Sixth Sense.
Yeah, that. I mean, think about it. Are we boring you, Martin? I hope not.
No. This is all pretty fascinating.
Oh, okay. So you do some investigate paranormal?
Me?
Yeah, or do you just write books?
I did once do a paranormal investigation, and it was the scariest experience of my life.
Oh, please share.
Please share.
Please share.
Okay. So it was, again, about 1975. And again, it really goes back to when I was going to Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in Troy, New York. And a friend of mine who is a blind middle-aged physicist who was also a psychic clairvoyant, he started a class on meditation, which I took. And I also learned how to open chakras and things like that. Well, one lady in the class was from Albany, which is about 20 miles from Troy. And she said that there were spirits haunting her house. She had a pretty old house. So on a Saturday night, 3 of us got together. Myself, Sam Lentine was his name. He's no longer with us. And a guy named Mark. And we took a bottle of water, which had been treated by Sam, that he wanted to take and do nuclear magnetic resonance on back at the school after he said he was going to absorb some spirits at the house. Okay, whatever. And we also took cameras with infrared film, and we were kind of sensitized from the courses we'd been taking to feel energies. So we go down to this lady's house, and we're walking around, and I'm pretty skeptical about all this. And we could feel kind of cold spots. It was winter. No, actually, it was October. And then Sam opened his bottle, and he claimed that he could feel spirits rushing into the bottle. I didn't notice anything, and I thought it was pretty strange. He puts the cap on the bottle, and it's a big bottle, a big plastic bottle, about over a foot long, maybe 2 feet long. Okay, so then we go over to visit a friend of his named Carolyn, and it's about 11 p.m. on Saturday night. And we have pizza at her place, and I bring the bottle upstairs with us, and the dog was very scared of the bottle and wouldn't go anywhere near it. And Mark looked at it and said he saw bubbles in it, and I didn't see anything. And I'm just ready to go home. And I'm driving my car. It was an old Opel Manta. And so the 3 of us head back to RPI at about, I'll say 1 a.m. And we're driving on the freeway there, and all of a sudden I ran out of gas. And my gas gauge wasn't working too well. So I got out and flagged down a car with a gas can to go get some gas. And I got back with the gas, and these guys said, "Martin, something really weird's going on. There's rocks flying against the car, and it just doesn't feel right." And I said, "Just calm down, guys. We had a long evening. We're tired, so just calm down." So we get in the car, and we started heading back. And this is where it starts to get really weird. So they're sitting in the back seat. I'm driving, and I start to feel a presence hovering over my shoulder in the air. And I couldn't tell what it was. And we're going down, and we have to cross a bridge over the Hudson to get back into Troy. And we're going up the hill, and these guys are just starting to panic. And I said, "Guys, will you just calm down? This is ridiculous." When all of a sudden I feel this presence, whatever it is, surrounding my head, penetrating my brain like it's raping my brain. It was just an unbelievably awful feeling. I've never had anything happen like this before or since. And I'll almost lose control of the car. I managed to slow down. It was raining a little bit, so I stop and I get out, and they said it's attacking them. So I take the bottle, I drain it out in the drain, and I kick it into the drain. And then we get back to Sam's place, and it's like we're up all night. We can't sleep, and we're all panicked. And he calls a priest who says a prayer for us. And I still felt like there was something hovering out there that was trying to get me for weeks and weeks. It was just so strange. I wouldn't have believed that a spirit could attack you, but apparently whatever we captured in this bottle was very unhappy and it wanted to get out. And that's why it attacked us. Again, I've never had anything similar to this. I mean, I did have a fight with a bear on the Appalachian Trail, but even that does not approach what I felt that evening. And I've told this story before. Actually, I told it on the radio station back when I was 19 on Halloween, and people laughed at me. But this happened. It was a spirit that attacked us. And so the message is, don't mess with spirits. If you
don't mess with spirits.
That's the story, and I swear on a stack of Bibles it happened to me.
So, I don't know if you all are familiar, but that's actually a way that people, a lot of mediums and psychics and stuff, use to cleanse a house or a building or location or whatever. Mm-hmm. If you take a jar bottle of water, the spirits are automatically drawn to that, the negative, because the water is an element, and and it has energy, obviously. So it's magnetic attraction to that. So that actually, but in most of those cases, they dispose of it right away.
That was maybe where we made the mistake.
Toilet outside, somewhere away from the house.
Yeah. Could you imagine
we wanted to run it through scientific instruments.
You don't take that with you.
Yeah, that would be good advice. I wish we talked to you back then.
You'd have a real crappy day.
Most definitely.
Oh my goodness gracious!
Somebody's doors open.
I never heard of that method about clearing a house with water.
Yeah, and so even if you want to, I use moon water a lot because, especially this time of year, if you don't like to use sage or things like that, if you leave or even just regular water, glasses of water out in different rooms in your house, it automatically attracts even negative bacteria and stuff. The water is obviously sitting there stagnant so it's not flowing. So you have to get rid of it. You can't leave it there forever.
What if you drink it?
Pretty cool.
What if you drink it after
you get sick?
I wouldn't drink that. You don't drink.
But it'll also act as an alien repellent, like in science.
Yeah, on science. Was it science? What was that?
So it's multi-purpose.
Most definitely. I have like 5 glasses of water laying around because I'll bring one in one room and I forget it and get another one.
Oh,
you can fill up a dishwasher full of dishes.
That's why the spirits are all in your room.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just so much we don't know about our universe. The more I learn, the more I read, the more experiences I have, the more I realize how little we know, how little tiny bit we know. Science and technology is just about a little part of our realm.
Martin, when you were doing your research, did you ever research something particular that you actually went down into a rabbit hole?
A rabbit hole? That's an interesting question. Let me think about that for a second. Rabbit holes.
They're usually fluffy, full of bunnies.
I go down this like 3 times a day, Sean.
Yeah.
What?
I'm always in a rabbit hole.
I would say this. Every time I research a subject, and I will tell you that I wrote a lot of my books just because I was curious about the subject and I wanted to see if there was anything really to it. I tend to find out that in most cases, there's something to it. And the way I judge it is by the evidence and whether the evidence is consistent. For instance, on time travel stories, if there are a lot of time travel stories that have a lot of similarity in them, like there being some type of open portal, then I think that there's probably some consistency to it. So that's how I judge a lot of things, by the consistency of the stories. But the more I learn about some things, the more fascinated I get. Like I recently did a book on the not the abominable snowman, the Bigfoot. Okay, Bigfoot. And there's a lot of books out there on Bigfoots. And I had never read any books on Bigfoot. And so I'm researching it and I'm starting to realize, my gosh, there's been like thousands of sightings of Bigfoot in North America over the years. Yeah. And there's a lot of valid stories, like a guy who owned a ranch in Texas, and he actually found a Bigfoot family living in the woods, a mother, a father, and a baby Bigfoot.
Wow.
And
family.
There's actually descriptions of them, and you can put the descriptions together, and they sound like this. The composite is they're 8 feet tall, 7 to 8 feet tall. They're very hairy. Some people describe the hair as red or gray. They have cone-shaped heads at the top, and they make this loud growls. They smell awful. I mean, there's a lot of other things you could come up with for the composite. But I just find the more I research, the more strange things I find. In fact, if I could blow my own horn for a second, Jeannie, is I put one book together I call Stranger Than Science, Stories and Facts. And I pulled information from like 20 different books of mine of all sorts of different weird things I've found just to put in that book, because I think it's kind of a good composite of this. So, yeah, I guess answering your question about a rabbit hole, every time I get into a new subject I don't know anything about and I research it, I do find a lot of strange things going on.
Very interesting. I'm looking at this question.
Yeah, that's a big one there.
Is that a question?
No, it's just
It's a statement.
Yeah, about Gettysburg?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you hear the sounds of the Battle of Gettysburg when you are at the location, you are receiving the telepathic thoughts from the soldiers who heard the sounds themselves. My friend, theoretical physicist Dr. Jack Fati, was one of the scientists who proved in the lab that both radio signals and telepathic thoughts could be sent back and forth in time. It is also the reason you can sense that something is going to happen to you in the future. You are picking up your own telepathic thoughts. Thanks, Art. What do you think of that there, Martin?
That's really interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I really believe that, because as I said before, like the 9/11 disaster sent waves out backward and forwards in time. And a major battle like Gettysburg would do the same thing. And I look at it, actually, our consciousness might be a quantum wave. And that gets into the whole question of quantum mechanics and what is consciousness. But I do believe major events send out waves. So here's another story I'll tell you, personal experience, personal premonition that indicates a wave. So back in 2003 and then most of 2004, I started having these strange dreams. I'm dreaming that I'm at a resort near the ocean. And all of a sudden waves come in and flood everything. And I'm at the end of the dream. But it happened to me in numerous places. I must have had 10 dreams over the course of that time where everything seemed to be a nice vacation. It was a different resort. And then a big tidal wave came in and destroyed everything. So, of course, this was the year, I think it was late December 26th of 2004, when the Indian Ocean tsunami happened. And they estimate it killed 250,000 people, the largest disaster in the last few hundred years. 250,000 people. So imagine all those people sent out mental stress, mental screams when this disaster happened to them and they were killed by the tsunamis. And that would have sent waves forward and backward in time, which we can pick up. So yes, I believe that guy is right about Gettysburg, that Gettysburg battle probably still sends waves from the people who were there, even now over 100 years later.
So I'm going to bounce this off of what we're talking about here from Art. He's talking about radio signals and telepathic thoughts could be sent back and forth, like something bad's going to happen to you or whatever. What's everyone's thoughts on that being like your present day, like gut feeling? Like you get a gut feeling about something. What if that's a future you telepathically sending that thought back to you, but in the form of like you get that gut feeling?
Yeah, I
think
think
you
we
don't
should
follow it, and it usually ends up bad.
We should always trust our intuition. Our intuition is usually right. Some people say intuition maybe just from subconscious facts you put together, but I believe it's more than that. I've had too many experiences in my life where following my intuition saved my life or saved me from a real problem. And so I believe in intuition very strongly.
I've had too many lessons that have told me how little I listen to my intuition.
Yeah, same here.
Yes.
It's like, I probably shouldn't do this or something, and go and do it, and then got to pay the price.
What are you doing?
So in hypnotherapy, I learned that, like you were saying, Martin, deja vu and things like that are in fact a series of, it's a pattern, something your higher conscious sees in the future happening, and that you should listen to that. And we also learn that your higher conscience has your best interest in mind, because it's not going to put your body in danger. It's not going to, it's not your higher conscious that makes you eat bad things or do anything toxic. It's when it gets to that subconscious level that we don't listen to ourselves. So
yes, and we tend not to pay attention to our intuition because our conscious mind is saying that's ridiculous, or we just want to do something too much. But when I go back to my airplane crash story, it was something that I'd experienced before, the same feelings of truth, I guess, and reality in my visions that made me want to pay attention to it, that saved my life, frankly, saved my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never had anything happen like that to me. Mm-mm. So, you say you write about the paranormal, correct? Is it just
Yes.
teleporting? Or is there like ghost involved, or what? What are some of your books?
Well, the first book I wrote on the paranormal was called Godlike Powers and Abilities. Mm-hmm. And I had been searching for paranormal books and couldn't find anything that listed a lot of the major paranormal abilities. So I wrote one. And my belief in the basis for this goes back to something called the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Has anybody ever heard of that? The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali?
Nope.
It's a book written in Sanskrit about 2,000 years ago in India. And it's a book on spiritual development. It's actually 4 books written in Sanskrit, which is very dense. And when you see translations of it, and you can find it online, by the way, it shows the Sanskrit, it shows how it's pronounced, then it shows an expanded English definition, and then most of the times there's paragraphs and paragraphs explaining it. But in one of the 4 books, I think, is it the second book, they talk a lot about paranormal abilities, which the author claims are a result of spiritual development. They are side effects of spiritual development. And I found that to be true in my life. So I took a lot of these abilities that I found through that, and I researched and wrote the book based on that. That there are many superhuman paranormal abilities that people can develop based on their spiritual development, their spiritual growth, and that we need to document those. I think we're way past the time of proving things like telepathy exists. They were doing that back in the 1920s and 30s. Now it's a matter of understanding what these abilities are and how we can develop and then use them safely and productively. Did I answer your question? I'm not sure I did.
Yeah, you sure did. In fact, I needed to hear that. Thank you for saying that.
Really Martin, good. How do you feel about animals and telepathy? Now, I have a weird relationship with my dog. If I think something, she knows it. It's like if I'm thinking like, oh, I hope Ava doesn't come back in here, all the whole time she kept on bothering me. I go, oh gosh, we have a special time where we lay on the couch. And I'll go, hey, Ava, you want to go lay on the couch? And I'll be thinking it before I say it. And then all of a sudden she's on the couch, a specific couch. There's just one couch that we do this with. And she'll go, and I'll go, oh my God, you read my mind. Or I'll be thinking, I think I have about 5 more minutes. I'm going to take
Or she's just reading your emotions because dogs.
No, I don't know, because I'll be up in my office and I'll be thinking, oh, what time is it? It's like, oh, 1 o'clock. I better take it.
I love that. In fact, I have a story about a dog premonition. So I love dogs. Mm-hmm. I used to have a, it wasn't a golden retriever. It's the other one. It's very similar to it. God, why is my mind going so? A Labrador, yes. Used to have a Labrador. And he was very smart. Now, this is when I was married, and I'm in the kitchen with my wife, and we were going to do some work on the dishwasher, which had a problem, and there was water inside of it. And I didn't think about it. She started to reach into it, and the dog goes crazy and starts barking at her, barking. And then we realized, oh my God, what she was going to do would probably get her electrocuted because we hadn't turned off the power.
Oh my
So we
God.
turned off the power and it was safe.
It's like your dog knew.
The dog had the premonition that she was going to get hurt, and he made it well known. The dogs are so smart.
Oh my God, they are.
I've had other experiences with dogs. Some are embarrassing. I don't want to talk about, but
well, I understand that because I'll be thinking
they're a good judge of people. That's for sure.
Yeah, they are.
Oh yeah, they know that dogs. I believe my dog is telepathic, and
I'll guarantee it.
I'll be thinking to myself, oh, I should take her out and not to play in the snow. And it's like, she comes flying upstairs and she's like, come on, Mom, let's go. Or if she sees my gloves or something, or she knows right away we're going to go outside.
Yeah, they make great companions for people. They've been around, for us, 20,000 years, maybe 25,000 years. So they've evolved to understand us. It's amazing.
I do this thing where I go, I'm going to tell you, come here, I'm going to tell you a secret. And then now she knows us. She'll come right up and she'll listen real quiet. Like she'll be listening. I'll whisper. I'll go, I'll tell you a secret. I'll whisper. She goes like this. But it's so funny now because I'll say, come here, I'm going to tell you a secret. She'll come flying up. I think it's fun. But yeah, she's too smart. It scares me. And I do believe, like Art Greenfield said, dogs are telepathic. They are. There's this weird.
My big dog, when you talk to him, he always like tilts his head.
Yeah, it's like, what are you talking
what's
about?
he doing? Yeah, we looked it up, and they're saying that when dogs do that, they're really trying to understand.
Yeah, they're trying to understand what you're saying. Yeah, it's spooky. And
I think any like animal or person can be telepathic in that sense. I think you're getting on the same frequency as your dog. Mm-hmm. You're so close and so connected that you're on that same frequency, and so you start being able to communicate with each other without words. The same as if you're with a close friend and you finish their sentence and you say, get on my level or get on my frequency or whatever. It's
now, if we can only understand when they're trying to telepathic us to say, where's my treats?
No, they know where their treats are.
They don't have to.
And you can tell if you have a really strong relationship with your dog is if you yawn and they yawn too. Because usually people only do that.
Yeah. Well, Jason got 4 dogs. Is that true, Jason?
Yep, I got 4.
4.
Yeah, but did they yawn when you yawn?
I haven't seen any yawn when I yawn, but all their personalities are crazy.
Well, keep.
We got the old man. We got the lovable one. We got the devil.
The devil.
We got the cuddler. Yeah, my little girl dog. I swear, she's 8 years old and still just super black.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's something else. She's like a cat, just like an evil cat, but she's a dog.
We'll get back to time travel. I think that I don't know. I find it to be a very, very interesting topic. And a lot of movies, they don't like to do time travel because it's so expensive. So you don't see too many time travel movies anymore because they're so expensive.
Yeah, I guess that would be.
Yeah, because it's very expensive and they're usually canceled. If like series, I know there's the Travelers that's on Netflix, and there's another one, the Time Travel.
What was that one movie with? I think it was Jodie Foster years ago, where she was in that like gyroscope kind of thing and time traveled to see her dad or something. But it was only in a matter of like a couple seconds, but to her it was like forever.
Oh, you're thinking of Contact, where she goes to visit aliens.
Was that it? I can't.
Yeah, I think he. I
haven't seen the movies in years.
That could have been a time travel experience too. That was a good movie.
Yeah.
I liked that.
Yeah, that was a very good
one
movie.
of the ones I don't remember. I think it was Sandra Bullock, maybe, where they didn't time travel, but her mailbox was like every time she put mail in it, the guy.
Yeah, I know. Was that the Lake House?
I think so.
Yeah, that was one, and then there's Somewhere in Time. I like Outlanders. I got stuck. I haven't been watching it, but that's another one. The Time Traveler's Wife was really good.
The funniest one I saw was the hot tub time machine.
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah,
I like that one too. Yeah,
there was an old show Scott Bakula starred in. He would go back. And I hear they want to do a remake on that.
Or the Time Tunnel. Do you remember the Time Tunnel from the 1960s?
No, I was young.
That was a great show.
Doctor Who, isn't that a time traveler?
He is too. But the time tunnel was, I think Irwin Allen made this a series, and it was a secret government project below the desert, of course. And they have this huge tunnel, and these two guys go into the time tunnel, and they get thrown out in time. And the problem is the whole series, they can never bring them back. They're always ending up in different times and having different adventures. It's a great series.
I'm going to have to look that up. Would it be on Netflix?
Probably.
I don't know if it's on Netflix, but you can find it on some of the other free downloads. The Time Tunnel series.
Time Tunnel series. I'm going to write that down.
What about Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good time. We're so crazy.
That was one of the best ones. Well, Martin, we're going to let you go. We're going to go on to our next. We're going to wrap it up, but thank you so much for joining us. We're going to have to bring you back on the show.
Let me mention one more thing. My website, again, it's mkettingtonbooks.com, spelled MKETTINGTONBOOKS.com. All my books on there, and it shows you where you can buy them. And thanks so much. I really enjoyed this. It was a lot of fun.
Definitely will bring you back on. You have so many different topics, books that we can talk about forever. But thank you again for coming back on the show.
Bye, Martin.
See you in the future.
Yeah, see you in the future. Well, that was really interesting.
Yeah.
It's very knowledgeable. I like the stories. I mean, you have to read the book. It was really interesting. It had a lot of different we could have sat here all night and talked about all the different time travelers. There's so many ideas. I could come up with a lot of stories, novels for some of this stuff. It's really good. Yeah, I liked it. I really do like time travel.
So if you could go back just 5-10 years and say you knew like winning lottery numbers and all that stuff, would you use all that to your advantage, or or would you just want to relive those years like normal?
But that's crazy that you said that, right? It's just like the guy who died and God said, "You're not supposed to be here yet. I'll give you one more day. What request do you have?" And he said, "Can I have the horse race results from the day before?" And God gives him the horse races, the results. I mean, he could win every single race with all the money that he had. But being the idiot that he was, he didn't listen to God and didn't go by. He only went by his own intuition, and he lost all his money. So, but think about it. That's why I say if I go back in time and you think, well, okay, I'm going to change time. I'm going to change something different. But when the situation occurs at the very last time, your thought comes in. It's like, do I really want to do this? And so it just interferes with what you want to do.
I don't know. If I could change a few things, I would. A word that you shouldn't have said.
Mm-hmm.
I can't change everything, but
I don't think I would, because we're all either, everything like that teaches ourselves or somebody a lesson. So, even catastrophic events, if those things didn't happen, then we wouldn't have learned from that event. So it's kind of it's a toss-up.
Well, I mean, if you had a chance to say you had a fight with somebody and then they died. If you could go back and, use, better choice of words or didn't fight.
I did an entire video on that because people haunt me. That's what I was saying, is the living are haunted by what they didn't say to the dead, and the dead haunt me for what they didn't say to the living. So if everybody would just live in the present, then that would be.
But then again, the way I look at that, Jen, if that situation ever happened to me, then I know when I die, I'm going to meet that person and I'm going to give them a hug. You know what I mean? So it's like eventually it's going to happen.
You know what, Sean? We could use time travel for paranormal investigations.
Let's do it, dude.
Travel back in time, see what really happened, then come back to the present with the rest of the team. And then when we get EVPs, we can tell them it's BS or if it's real.
That's right.
Yeah, it would be, when the book I'm really liking Paris, like Versailles, and it just makes me want to go back and watch the series Versailles. It's on Netflix. There's just something about that era and that place that I would love to go. I mean, I would love to go there someday. That time period, did you ever watch it? Did you guys
No,
well, you should just
did.
watch maybe one episode of it. It was with Louis the 14th and Philip, their brothers. It was there's just something about that. And then his stories he was telling about how these two women went there. It was just, could you imagine if you're walking in the garden, there's this beautiful garden, and if all of a sudden you started to walk and all of a sudden you went back in time, that would be so cool. I would love to experience. Oh man, that would be so. Just close your eyes for a second. Just pretend that you can go somewhere. It would be. How would you feel? What would your emotions be?
If I close my eyes, I'm going to sleep.
Well, you know what I mean. Like if you're walking and you all of a sudden you're walking and you end up in a different time. Like how would you react? I mean, see things. It's just a really cool. I get this really weird feeling that it would be so awesome, just to. And if you could come back, I wouldn't want to be stuck there, but or part of history, walking down, outside the theater where Abraham Lincoln was killed, and if you just can go back and just feel and using all your senses, smell and what it smelled like, and just to see the colors and touch the fabric of their clothes, that would be so awesome. Just for a second, which I end up going back in time in my dream, 1947, back in Roswell when the aliens landed.
Put yourself right there.
Yeah,
so there you go.
Or you can feel touch the metal of the spaceship. Like, would it be cold? Would it be hot? Is it smooth? Just I know I'm crazy.
Maybe you can go to Montana and find that cowboy and go back in time with him and start with him.
Yeah, just to feel like to be able to touch the horses. The is it rough? Is it smooth? The hair. I would imagine it would be like a little rough, like it's not real smooth. And what would it smell like?
I'm waiting for you to go to Montana, Jen. Honest to God, you're ready to go. I could just tell. Feel the vibes.
I would love to go to Montana. Get the heck out of. She's being a creeper. Oh, thanks.
We know who that is.
Yeah, we know.
That is. We know.
Yeah.
No, I'm just using. It's like when you write a story, like you're trying to set the scene, and you're supposed to use all your senses to write it like a scene. Like what does it smell like? What does it taste like? What is it? What
I heard
colors
all that
are there?
Horse, so I was like,
a horse. I mean, can you imagine? No, in Montana, you just use your mind. What it would, what does the smell like in a ranch in Montana? What would it smell like? Could you smell the hay? Or you know how you're going to a beach when you're driving to the beach with your kids on the hot, on the.
You smell the salty air from the ocean.
Can you smell the salt in the air? And the
or
seaweed.
Go out to Kansas and just smell that tornado coming.
Smell the tornado. Yeah, you can smell a tornado. Or
like
fill the
window slippers together and.
Okay, you're in Kansas. Oh, I did. I'm gonna tell you this, Trish. Me and my son, a couple weekends ago, we were watching on YouTube Kansas. Some guy does all these different cities, and we went to Kansas, and so I can get a visual of what it looks like in Kansas. But they had a lot of windmills, and it was really neat. A lot of space.
Like the old school windmills or the
newer ones.
Oh, the energy, yeah.
Yeah, the energy ones. It was really neat.
I was gonna say we have a lot of the other ones too.
Well, yeah. But you know what? It was getting me back to Jeepers Creepers with those
Yeah, I used to windmills oh my gosh. I legit this year, or it had to have been around Halloween, saw a man in that same hat, trench coat, standing at a gas pump.
Oh,
I'm sure he does that on purpose. And he had that.
Oh, he does it on purpose, I bet.
Yes. And I was like, My eyes. I can't.
That guy was so creepy. That's one of the
Jeepers
scariest
Creepers.
movies I've ever watched. I have to say, Jeepers Creepers.
For real?
Yeah, especially the one with the bus scene. I don't know if that was the second one.
Oh yes.
Because I told you I've seen a creature. There used to be an old ice cream store in a farmland, and standing on the top of the roof was a creature like Mothman.
Huh.
I am legit not crazy. I've seen
Well, if
it.
you saw it, that means it probably saw you. So one day while you're sleeping, it's going to bust on your window.
I think it
and take
already
you
came
away.
here because in November of 2015, I remember the day. I'm not kidding you. I will live to tell. I even posted on Facebook because occasionally
Video, it didn't happen.
No, occasionally it comes up on my Facebook memories. At about 2:00 in the morning, maybe 3, I hear this screaming sound outside my window. I've never in my life, it wasn't a raccoon, it wasn't a cat, cat and heat. It was not. I woke up my son. I'll never forget it. I woke up my son and said, please hurry up, come in my room. There's something outside my window. Oh, please. And he comes in and he goes, holy shit. We were like, my heart's beating, like, what the fuck is that? And I was like, what is
Nope,
that?
we're canceled.
Shut up. What is that? What is that? And he actually slept in my bed that night because he was so scared.
Oh, wow.
It was whatever it was not human. And I told Stan Gordon on the phone one day, I don't know what this thing is because we heard it jump from the ceiling to the ground. Literally.
What'd Stan say?
He said, who knows what it could have been? It could have been the Thunderbird. Remember, it's in the same area. This thing was huge. We heard it on the ground.
Wow.
It jumped. It jumped from the.
He's coming on the show in a couple weeks, right?
Sean, there's a question
Yes.
for
Let
you.
me tell you what we have here. Okay, we have.
I don't time travel. I'm sorry, I don't.
What kind of equipment would you use?
What kind?
See, now if you could time travel, you would know because you'd already been to the future. Now you're back to the past, so now you know what equipment you would use.
Well, actually, the 8th of February, we have. We don't have anybody for February 1st. So if you guys know anybody that wants to be on the show, if anybody out there wants to be on the show,
you know what we do. That's that one dude from the place we're going to in New York. Remember, I sent you the message about it.
It's on February 1st.
Yeah.
Do we have him booked?
I gave you all this information.
Oh God. You probably told me when I was in the middle of something.
Hinsdale House.
The Hinsdale House. The guy.
That's right. That's right. I didn't contact him though. I don't know if he still can do it.
We got like 9 months until then. The Hinsdale House.
Well, we can try to contact him this month. We'll try to do it. Maybe. Do you have a personal relationship with this man?
I've been in contact with him, so we can get the group up there.
See if he wants to do. See if he's able to do Monday. Tuesday next week. We have that open. We have Badge of the Bum Paranormal coming on the 5th of February. Stan Gordon's coming on next week, although we won't be able to do it on here. Wait a minute. That's not right. Stan Gordon's coming on the 15th. Who do we have on the 24th? I have to go back and look.
There you go. Use your time travel and go back.
Where the heck is January? Wait a minute. Okay. Where the heck is it? Okay. The Appalachian guy.
Yeah.
Appalachian Bigfoot. He's coming on the 25th.
So with all those Bigfoots, out there and everybody's seeing them, why doesn't everybody just grab some bags of jack-o'-lanterns and go wait in the woods? And just wait for them.
And I bet you there's people out there that does that. Honestly, Pete.
Bags of Jack.
Seriously?
No, really.
No. Bigfoot is real, but I don't know. I totally think it's I think they're just inbreds. I'm sorry.
That's
okay. You can get some of those dog toys. You put peanut butter in. They're like a puzzle.
No, I don't believe he's from outer space. I believe that they're just in the Appalachians. People live in the, these small little, like West Virginia town. And I just think that they're inbreds. They're just, You shouldn't be having
hairy inbreds, huh?
They're just inbreds that really are messed up, and they live in the Appalachians. But they live everywhere. They're everywhere. There's so many mountain folk. I'm gonna get myself in trouble.
Oh Lord.
No, Trish, you understand. And heart doctors.
I mean, I'm from Kansas. I have no idea what goes on the East Coast.
Seriously, no. I believe that there is these. No, going back to missing people. Okay, I believe that they are being taken by these creatures or Bigfoot, but they're just. I don't know. I don't think they're UFO, alien. I don't think they're time travelers. I just think they're
Jeez.
Wow.
Yes, it's time for me to go to bed.
My show, The Missing Piece, PEACE, premieres next Monday.
Oh goodness!
Yeah, good job.
9 p.m. Eastern time, 8 p.m. Central.
Wait. You didn't tell me anything about this. Did you have a good show on the station?
I'm talking about.
Where was I at?
I don't know.
Did I time travel?
You just missed the last 6 minutes.
Wait. No, I was here.
No, you weren't. You disappeared. Like, thanks for coming back. What happened?
Okay, did you discuss this before and I didn't know about it? Okay, so you have a show. Well, congratulations. You didn't tell me, Chris.
Chris.
Who the hell is Chris?
Oh my God.
It's time for you to go to bed, honey.
Trish. Okay,
She's going to turn the pumpkin here any minute.
9 p.m. Eastern time. Yes, 8 p.m. Central.
On the UFO Paranormal Network?
Yes, and I will be having Rupert Kortosh next week, who I'm really excited. He's actually the global CE5 founder, who he teaches how to communicate with aliens via astral projection. So
this is on what day?
Kansas. So Monday.
Monday, 9:00 Central or Eastern?
9:00
Eastern.
8:00 Central.
That's going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, congratulations, everybody. Check it out. Trish's show. What's it called?
The Missing Piece.
The Missing Piece on 9:00 Eastern on Mondays on the UFO Paranormal Network. That's awesome. Okay, guys, we're going to call it a night. Thank you again for joining us and tuning in.
Good night.
Thank you for Torture Tuesday.
Thank you for tuning into Torture Tuesday, folks.
Until next time.
Until we meet again.
Next week. Next Tuesday.
Future.
We're going to time travel from next
Tuesday. We're going
to
time travel to Tuesday.
We're going to time travel. No.
We'll see you on next Tuesday because we're going to time travel.
I need a vacation before we go back.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. Let's see. Where is my
Time travel to find